I knew taking this internship was going to be a challenge, but I didn't know it would start with me walking in on my boss's son in the employee locker room, naked, and staring right back at me like I was the one intruding. Let me back up. It was the first week of summer, and I just landed a coveted internship at this small but pretty successful architecture firm downtown. I was 2 semesters away from graduating, broke, and desperate to add anything impressive to my resume. So when they called me in, I jumped at it, even though I knew I'd be working under the legendary, always intimidating Mr. Dennison. Mr. Dennison was in his late 50s, ran the office like a ship, and had a reputation for hiring only people who didn't talk back and always wore a tie. So yeah, I was a little on edge. I made it a point to be early every day, kept my head down, and tried to learn as much as I could. Then, on Wednesday morning, I arrived a little earlier than usual and realized I'd left my portfolio binder in the locker I was assigned to. The office had a small gym downstairs that employees could use, and they let interns keep their things there if they weren't in the way. I figured it'd be a quick grab and go, but when I swung the locker room door open, I wasn't expecting him. Tall, towel slung over one shoulder, lean muscle, and a kind of easy confidence I only ever saw in guys who knew they were hot. His back was to me at first, but when he turned, completely unbothered by his lack of clothing, I froze. "Oh," he said, like it was me who was naked. "Didn't think anyone came down here this early." Sorry, I didn't mean," I stammered, immediately turning away. My face was on fire. He chuckled. "You one of the interns?" "Yeah," I muttered, still staring at the tile wall, praying it would swallow me whole. "Cool, I'm Evan." I heard the rustling of fabric and dared to glance over. He was tying his towel back around his waist, but his smirk didn't disappear. "My dad runs this place." My stomach dropped. Mr. Dennison's son. Of course. He wasn't in any of the company photos. I'd heard whispers that Mr. Dennison had a son. Maybe around my age, but he was never around. Rumor was he dropped out of college, moved back home, and had been bouncing between jobs ever since. I hadn't expected him to be hot, though. Or casually naked in the locker room like it was a damn cologne commercial. "Right, sorry. I'll just grab my stuff," I mumbled, trying to edge around him without making eye contact. But he stepped aside slowly, eyes still on me. "Don't worry about it. You're new. You'll learn how things work around here." He said it with a teasing lilt, like it meant something more. And maybe it did, because later that day, I caught him watching me from the glass-walled office up on the mezzanine. He was leaning against the railing, arms crossed, half smirk on his face, just observing. And when I looked up, his eyes didn't dart away. They stayed locked on mine, unblinking. Something told me this internship wasn't going to be simple. And I was right, because the next time we were alone, something happened that changed everything. I tried to keep my head down after that locker room moment, but Evan made that impossible. He showed up in the office more frequently, always casual. Ripped jeans, fitted t-shirts, not a care in the world. He didn't work there officially, as far as I could tell, but people acted like he was part of the furniture. Nobody questioned why the boss's son was hanging around, especially not me. I kept trying to play it cool, but every time I passed him, I felt his eyes on me, not just a glance, a stare. The kind that made you hyper-aware of your own body, like you were being peeled apart and studied. It didn't help that the office break room was small. One afternoon, I was making coffee when he stepped in and leaned against the counter just a foot away from me, arms folded, that same lazy smile tugging at his lips. "You always this serious?" he asked. I didn't look up, just trying to make a good impression. "On my dad?" he teased. I paused, then glanced at him. "Among others." He tilted his head. "You sure you're not trying to impress me?" I let out a laugh, more nervous than amused. "Should I be?" Evan just smiled and walked away, leaving a trail of silence and heat behind him. Things escalated quickly after that. A week later, I stayed late working on revisions Mr. Dennison had sent me. The office was empty, lights dimmed, that weird hush that settles when everyone else has gone home. I was so deep into my laptop that I didn't hear footsteps until Evan's voice broke the quiet. "You don't have a life or something?" I jumped a little, then looked up to see him leaning in the doorway, holding 2 sodas. "Jesus," I muttered. "Don't sneak up on people." He grinned and walked in, offering me a can. I hesitated, then took it. "You good?" I asked. He shrugged, sitting on the edge of the desk across from mine. "Bored. Figured I'd see who the overachiever was." Caught me. He cracked open his soda, watching me over the rim as he took a sip. "You always work this hard?" Trying to prove myself. To who? I didn't answer that. I didn't have one. The room went quiet again, except for the soft hum of the AC and the occasional creak of the old floors. He didn't move, didn't look away, just sat there, watching me. Then, softly he asked, "Why are you avoiding looking at me?" I blinked. "What?" "You've barely looked at me since the locker room. Why?" I felt my stomach twist, unsure whether to play it off or own it. I settled for the truth. "Because that wasn't exactly a forgettable moment." Evan smirked. "Didn't think you minded." I didn't say I did. There was a beat of silence. Then he got up, walked over slowly, and stopped right beside my chair. I had to tilt my head to meet his eyes. They were closer than they'd ever been, and sharper, more curious. He lowered his voice. "So why are you looking at me like that now?" I swallowed. "Like what? Like you're waiting for me to do something." I didn't respond. Evan leaned down, his hand resting on the back of my chair, his breath warm against my cheek. Should I? Everything in me tensed. I didn't move. Couldn't. My mouth was dry. My heart was thudding so loud I was sure he could hear it. He was right there, inches away, but before I could answer, before I could even think, the office door creaked open behind us. Evan immediately straightened up and stepped back, just as one of the older junior architects popped in. "Forgot my keys," he muttered, not even glancing our way. Evan looked at me one last time, eyes dark, unreadable. Then he said, loud enough to sound innocent, "See you around," and walked off, leaving me sitting there, breathless, shaken, and more confused than ever. The next morning, I came in early again, partly because I had work to catch up on, and partly because I needed to breathe without wondering when Evan might show up next. But he was already there, sitting in my usual spot at the break room table, sipping a coffee like he owned the place. Which, in a way, he kinda did. "You're early," I said, trying to sound normal. He looked up with a smile. "So are you." I hesitated by the doorway, unsure whether I should turn around or sit down. Evan patted the chair beside him. "I don't bite," he said. "Unless you're into that." I rolled my eyes but sat anyway. The air between us was thick, and I hated how aware I was of his every move. The way his fingers wrapped around the coffee cup, the curve of his lips as he smirked, the casual spread of his legs under the table. "About last night," I started. He cut me off. "Relax, I'm not going to jump you in your dad's office." "That's not what I stopped, shaking my head. "Forget it." Evan leaned forward, voice lower now. "I meant what I said." I looked at him, unsure if I was imagining the way his gaze softened. "Which part?" "The part where I asked if you wanted me to do something." He let the words hang there between us. My throat went dry again. "I wasn't just playing around," he added. "I know it probably seems like that's my thing." I stared down at the table. "You don't even know me." "No," he said. "But I've been watching you." That caught me off guard. "Not in a creepy way," he added quickly. I notice stuff. You're careful. You don't speak up in meetings unless you're sure you're right. You always double-check your work before handing it in. You laugh at the dumbest jokes in the break room, even when you don't mean it." I raised an eyebrow. "You're observant." He shrugged. "Or maybe I just like watching you." I didn't know what to say to that. The honesty in his tone made it hard to deflect, hard to pretend. Evan leaned back, stretching his arms behind his head. Anyway, just say when. When what? When you want me to stop playing it cool. Then he stood and walked out, leaving his half-finished coffee and 1,000 unanswered questions in the air. Later that week, Mr. Dennison sent me on a site visit across town. I was supposed to check on one of the firm's smaller residential projects and make sure the layout adjustments had been implemented. I took the train over, clipped notes in hand, earbuds in. Halfway through the visit, I got a text from an unknown number. "Enjoying the suburbs?" I frowned. Then another one popped up. "Nice blue shirt, by the way." I turned around fast, scanning the street. A few cars, a jogger, a couple walking a dog. That was it. Then I spotted him, leaning against a black Jeep, sunglasses on, grinning. "Evan, what the hell are you doing here?" I asked as I crossed the street toward him. He shrugged, pushing off the car. "You mentioned the site during lunch. Thought I'd check it out." I didn't say which one. "You think we don't log where interns get sent?" he said, amused. I stared at him. "You're stalking me now?" "Only a little." I should have been annoyed. But the truth was, I wasn't. "I brought coffee," he said, holding out a cup. I hesitated, then took it. "Thanks." We stood there for a second, cars passing behind us. The sun was hot, the street quiet, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "I wasn't lying the other day," Evan said. I glanced over. "I do like watching you," he added. "You get this look when you're focused, like the world disappears." I didn't know what to say to that. My instinct was to make a joke, to deflect. But I didn't. "You're not what I expected," I said instead. "Good or bad?" "I don't know yet." He stepped closer. "Want to find out?" After that day on the site, something shifted between us. Evan didn't hide it anymore. He'd walk by my desk and brush his fingers across my back, just slightly enough that nobody else would notice. He started texting me during meetings. Things like, "Bored, want to leave?" Or, "You look hot in that shirt." Just saying. I'd pretend to ignore it, but I always smiled. Every time. There was still a line between us, an invisible one, but I felt it tightening. One evening, I stayed behind to finish mock-ups for a proposal. Everyone else had cleared out. My headphones were in, soft music playing as I clicked through renderings. I was focused, zoned in, until I felt someone behind me. I turned, and there he was. Evan. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me, like he was trying to decide something. Then, without a word, he walked over, took one of my earbuds out, and leaned down so close I could smell the faint citrus scent of his shampoo. "You should take a break." I sat back a little, heart thudding. "I'm almost done." He reached past me, closed my laptop gently, and straightened. "Now you're done." I stared up at him, unsure whether I was annoyed or turned on. Probably both. "Evan." But he was already walking away. "Come on." I followed him out of instinct, down the hall, past the empty desks and glass-walled offices, to the corner conference room. He pushed the door open and waited for me to step in. I hesitated. "This isn't a game," I said. "I know. I'm not some random." "You think I do this with everyone?" he asked, voice low. I didn't answer. He stepped forward and closed the door behind him. And we were alone. The hum of the city outside was faint through the windows. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly. He walked over, stopped a foot from me, and didn't touch me. Just looked. "I know this is complicated," he said. "I know who my dad is. I know what this could look like." "Then why are you pushing it?" "Because," he said simply, "I can't stop thinking about you." The words hung there, soft but heavy. "I tried," he added. After the locker room, I told myself to back off, to leave it alone. But then you'd walk by, or say something, or just exist, and it got worse. I didn't know what to say. My hands were clenched at my sides, my whole body wired, like it didn't know whether to fight or give in. Then he stepped closer. "If you tell me to stop," he said, I will. I didn't move. If you want me to walk out of this room and never say another word, I'll do that too. Still, I didn't move. His hand hovered near mine, not quite touching. But if you don't, I closed the distance. When I kissed him, it wasn't careful. It wasn't hesitant. It was everything we'd both been holding back for weeks, crashing to the surface at once. Evan pulled me in like he'd been starving for it, his hands gripping my waist, mine threading into his hair. His lips were soft but demanding, like he needed to know this wasn't a dream. It didn't feel like real life, not with the office quiet around us, the hum of the city beyond the windows, the faint buzz of the overhead lights above us. But the way he kissed me, like he meant it, grounded me. "This is insane," I mumbled against his mouth, breathless. "Yeah," he whispered, lips brushing mine. "But it feels good, doesn't it?" I nodded. We barely made it to the couch against the wall. He pushed me down gently, climbed over me with a kind of reckless care. His mouth trailed down my neck, hands under my shirt, fingertips dragging across my stomach like he wanted to memorize every part of me. I let my head fall back, eyes fluttering shut, a low breath escaping my lips. "I shouldn't be doing this," I said. "We shouldn't be doing this." He paused, eyes meeting mine. "Then tell me to stop." I didn't. Instead, I kissed him harder. We stayed like that, tangled, messy, completely lost in each other, until reality started to creep back in. A door slammed somewhere down the hall. A car alarm chirped outside. The kind of sounds that remind you, this can't last forever. Evan sat back, still straddling my legs, his chest rising and falling. His hair was a mess. His lips were pink and swollen. He looked like every terrible idea I'd ever wanted to make. I reached up and brushed a thumb across his jaw. "What are we doing?" I asked, more to myself than him. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I don't want to stop." I laughed softly, rubbing my eyes. "Your dad is going to murder me." "My dad doesn't have to know." I gave him a look. "You're aware you just made that sound way more suspicious, right?" He smiled. "Yeah, I know." He stood, pulling me up with him. We straightened ourselves, hair, shirts, breath. He lingered at the door. "Hey!" "Yeah? I wasn't kidding about watching you." I blinked. "I know. And I want more than just this." That stopped me. My heart stuttered a little. "More than just sneaking around in conference rooms?" I asked. He nodded. "More than that." For a second, I let myself believe it. Then the door opened, and we stepped back out into the world like nothing had happened. But something had. Something big. I wish I could say things went back to normal after that we could brush it off as a heat-of-the-moment thing and keep it professional. But we both knew better. That kiss unlocked something we couldn't put back. Evan kept showing up, more frequently, more deliberately. He'd find reasons to stop by my desk, lean in too close, make some teasing comment only I could read the double meaning in. And I'd pretend not to notice while my heart beat like I was trying to hide a felony. It wasn't just flirting anymore, there were late nights. Him waiting for me in the stairwell, pulling me into quiet corners, whispering things that made my knees weak. We hadn't gone all the way. Yet. But it felt inevitable. Like we were standing on the edge of something we couldn't undo. And then, everything started to unravel. Mr. Dennison called me into his office. I tried to stay calm as I walked in. His office was neat as always, minimal, a giant architectural model spread across the table behind him. He looked up from a file, nodded for me to sit. "I've been hearing good things," he said without preamble. "Your site reports are clear. Your renderings are sharp. You've got a good head on your shoulders." "Thank you, sir," I said, trying not to fidget. Then he looked at me with those sharp eyes. "You're not distracted, are you?" I blinked. "No, sir." "Good," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. The meeting ended quickly, but his tone had shifted, more distant, like he knew something, or suspected it. I barely made it back to my desk before Evan texted me. Evan. He's gonna find out eventually. Me. He already suspects something. Evan. Do you want me to back off? I stared at the screen for a long time. Me. No. Because I didn't. That Friday, after everyone left, Evan waited for me outside. I found him leaning against the building, hair tousled, denim jacket slung over his shoulder. You look stressed, he said. Your dad almost cornered me today. Yeah, he's been acting weird with me too. I exhaled, rubbing my face. Maybe we should cool it for a while. Evan just looked at me. Is that what you want? I didn't answer. He stepped closer, voice low. Because I'll do it if you ask. But don't lie. My silence gave me away. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed him by the jacket and kissed him again. Hard. Desperate. When we finally broke apart, breathless, he whispered, Then stop worrying. Let me take you somewhere. Where? He grinned. You'll see. He took me to a hotel. Not for the night. Just a few hours. Just us. And that's where things finally crossed the line. The hotel room was quiet. Clean. Dimly lit with soft golden light that made everything feel a little slower. A little more intimate. Evan shut the door behind us and just stood there for a second. Watching me. Like he didn't want to rush it. Like he was waiting to see if I'd bolt. I didn't. He walked over and rested his hands on my waist, eyes searching mine. Are you sure? I nodded. I need to hear you say it, he said gently. I'm sure, I whispered, and that was it. He kissed me. Different this time. Less heat, more depth. Slower, more intentional, like he was trying to learn me, not just touch me. I responded without thinking, my hands threading through his hair, pulling him closer. He took his time. We peeled each other out of our clothes piece by piece. Every layer a new inhale, every touch a deeper exhale. His skin was warm against mine, his breath ragged in my ear as he whispered things I wouldn't remember later, only the way they made me feel. There was no rush. He treated it like we had all the time in the world. And when it finally happened, when there was nothing left between us but skin and breath and noise I couldn't quite control, it wasn't just sex. It felt like something was opening in me I didn't even know had been closed. Afterward, we lay there side by side, not touching, not speaking, just letting our hearts settle. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was full, heavy, meaningful. Eventually, Evan rolled onto his side, propping his head up with his hand. You okay? He asked. I nodded, still staring at the ceiling. I don't think I've ever felt like that before. Like what? Like someone actually saw me. He didn't say anything at first. Then he reached over, laced his fingers through mine. I've been trying to, he said softly, since day one. I turned to look at him. Why me? He smiled, slow and kind. Because you don't see how interesting you are. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Dennison. Come to my office first thing Monday. We need to talk. Evan saw the change in my face instantly. What is it? I turned the screen so he could read it. His expression darkened. Shit. The entire weekend felt like a countdown. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every moment I tried to relax, my mind would flash back to Mr. Dennison's message. I didn't sleep much. Evan tried to keep things light. Texts, a late-night call, even sent a stupid meme. But I could tell he was nervous too. Monday morning hit like a hammer. I dressed carefully. Neutral. Professional. Like I could hide everything we'd done behind a buttoned-up collar and a muted expression. Evan didn't text. Didn't show up. I think he knew he couldn't help this time. When I walked into Mr. Dennison's office, he didn't ask me to sit. He closed the door and leaned against his desk, arms crossed, that unreadable look on his face. "I gave you a shot because I thought you were focused. Professional?" he said quietly. "Not because I thought you'd get involved with my son." My throat went dry. So he did know. "I didn't plan for it to happen," I said. He nodded slowly, as if he'd already had this conversation with himself 100 times. "Neither did he, probably," he said. "But Evan has a way of pulling people into his orbit." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. "I'm not firing you," he said finally. I looked up, stunned. "But not because I approve," he added quickly. "Because you're good. And because I believe people can separate personal from professional if they care enough." I swallowed. "I do. Then prove it." That was it. No more warnings. No more lectures. Just a chance. On thin ice. The next few days at the office were quiet. Evan didn't come in. The messages slowed. I kept my head down, did my work, and tried to convince myself this was what I wanted. That maybe it was just a summer thing. But then Thursday evening, just as I was packing up, someone knocked on the glass. It was Evan. He looked like hell. Tired, hair messy, hands shoved in the pockets of a hoodie I hadn't seen before. He waited until everyone else left, then stepped inside. "I didn't want to screw this up for you," he said, so I backed off. I stood there, frozen. "I thought maybe you were done." He shook his head. "I'm not done." We stared at each other, that familiar weight hanging between us again. "I talked to him too," Evan said. "He's not happy. But he didn't forbid it." "Did you tell him everything?" Evan laughed softly. "God number. Just enough." I sat back on my desk, exhausted. "So what does this mean?" He stepped closer. "It means if you're still in, I am too. We'll take it slow. Keep it quiet, no stupid risks." I looked at him. At the guy who turned my internship into a minefield. At the guy that first kissed in a conference room and didn't regret it. At the guy who somehow made me feel seen when I least expected it. "I'm still in," I said. He smiled, stepped forward, and rested his forehead against mine. "No more hiding," he whispered. "Not from each other, anyway." And just like that, we started something real. Not simple, not safe, but real.